I think that's the biggest thing for at least that small pocket, um, or our organization or whatever, is how can we get them having a more enjoyable experience, right? And then again, I mean, what do you like? I could keep going back to the terms, but what are your thoughts on the terms? Like, do you think, and I'm not sure if I have enough pull to even change that part of the organization, but would you think 3 months versus maybe 6 months getting them to commit versus a year or something? Or do you think leaving it at 3 months? If in a perfect world, then I got to, at least put some thoughts about the organization, maybe changing its approach a little bit. What are your thoughts on timeline or time scale, I guess? Like ideally, because again, it's different than like clubs. And I don't know. We obviously all come from different places, and Adam and I would assume probably be a little more on the same page in North America, but like to six that you would kind of be with your club. I don't know. I know we get kids changing clubs all the time and jumping around and playing for multiple clubs and things like that. And um, it's kind of the same in Vietnam now. There's a whole nother side where and I don't know the full rules, but there's something called like homegrown players and the federation. So the city federations can sign these players and they can give them, I guess, a stipend or whatever to train. But then they're kind of locked under these youth contracts. And so you can't play for certain clubs or in tournaments. And like if you want to represent the province and things like that, you need to have signed a contract or something early, or I don't know how it all works, but it's trying to navigate also that situation as well, where some of the better players, they may be like, oh, I can come to practice. My federation on me once a week, and I'm not allowed to play games. Or it's like the federation needs me for these dates, and so you might have kids coming in and out of your practices or your team and things like that. Um,
Hmm.
so there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts that I'm trying to figure out because culturally, it's Vietnam's a I've never experienced anything like that in my life. The way that things are run and the way things are done, and I'm not saying it's a bad or a good thing. It's just I'm still trying to figure it out.
I wonder, John, would you describe like your future situation more like an academy than a club? Would that be a better description of it? Because
It's
that
hard.
would probably alter the approach you take, I guess. How would you
Yeah,
describe?
like it's again those top players. I would call that more of an academy because they have access. I think they do. It's like when you join that one, I think you get an extra day or two of practice. Like it's very calculated on how much court time you get, how much training, because again the infrastructure and the resources are quite limited. With 400 kids, I think our facility. Well, we only have two courts, and so a lot of times you'll be running a full team practice, and there's four teams on two courts, right? So you get your one basket in a half court, and some of these teams will have 15, 16 guys,
Mm.
and it's like shared basketballs. So it's like you may or may not, and it's open air gym. So these basketballs get beat. They're dribbled
Yeah.
in water. It's like so they're not the greatest.
Mm.
Um, so I would say the older or the better players, I would consider that more so an academy. And then for the 400 or so kids that are coming through that other youth program, I would look at that more as a club, like a recreational club. Um,
A club? What about like a feeder program? Well, that
the
does not
the
apply.
feeder would be the top one. They call that next gen
Okay.
heat. So that would be
Uh,
like even in their name of like the pro team is the Saigon Heat.
hmm.
And so that feeder program and that academy program would be the best players coming from. But again, you can try out from around the city, but a lot of the kids would be homegrown from that other club,
Mm.
chosen for next gen, and then they would train together, have access to better coaching, more resources, more tournaments, Still not a ton of opportunity to play, getting better. From when I first saw a year and a half ago in Vietnam, they're starting to build more gyms and um, infrastructure around that.
Mm.
Um, but I think that the 400 youth coming through that, I would probably call that a club, like a low, like a recreational club team or club program, I guess. Just getting kids in the door to play basketball, I guess. And that's kind of the grassroots problem of how can we retain and then grow the sport. It's interesting because like shooting is very low, very very low.
Mm.
No baskets to shoot on, and so a lot of these kids, yeah, and you look at the pro teams and the local guys, and there's no disrespect, but it's just a product of the environment of they just we take it for granted. I don't know about you guys, but like I grew up with a shooting machine and a gym anytime I kind of wanted, or most if I want to wake up early, whatever, like I had the opportunity. But it's like once your hour and a half practice ends, there's another team coming on, and then at the end, there's probably bookings for adults trying to play too. So
Mm.
it's these kids will come to the gym and they're relegated to the ones that want to work. They'll be doing dribbling on the side, stationary ball handling on the side, or just in a little patch of concrete they can find or whatever,
Mm.
right? But you won't definitely won't have a basket to shoot on. Um,
Mm.
it's
I
yeah,
think
it's
when you asked the question, 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months before, um, it just seems to me that if you've got the next gen group and the recreational club group, um, give it some thought and think what would be the number one outcome for each of those two groups, or the top three, or a very small number. What would be success for you in 3 months for the next gen group? What would be, the number one KPI for success for the recreational club? Because I think you might find different responses to those two questions, and then you can extend that to if it was 6 months or longer or whatever. I mean, you might have a response now, you might not. It doesn't matter. Um, but if you want to give that a go at the moment, by all means, go for it.
yeah, no, that's definitely got me thinking. Like KPIs for next gen, it's a lot of those kids they want to be pros, right? So those guys are, and a lot of them are, like I can see them, especially with the way Vietnamese basketball is. It's I can definitely see a lot of them kind of have that pathway of making it to the big club. Um, so I guess that would be considered successful, I guess, is them playing university um, or professional. Some of the high schools, like we have a couple guys that are still in high school that have played professionally now. They've joined the pro side and they're able to do both. And actually, the team captain is actually playing in university as well right now. And so
Mm.
I don't know what their rules are around eligibility and things like that. But with next gen for sure, they're trying to get them to that next level. With the other club, like KPIs would be, well, obviously you would want to try to figure out how to get some kids maybe that are late bloomers into next gen, right? We want to develop some kids. We don't want to just say once you're chosen at 12, right? These are our guys. Like we want to give opportunity for others to develop or late bloomers to come along. Um, Again, KPI again, retention. That was the one thing that I took from that meeting.
Mm.
When I talked to the boss was he said we have a very low retention rate. And so especially with basketball, because basketball is not super popular, it's very niche. And so soccer is popular or football. Like I would say volleyball is probably even more popular. Um, so retention rate, getting them to actually enjoy the game, and yeah, just inspiring them to keep playing. I think that's the way that in order for them to grow. When I first started talking to them, they talked about how in their development program and how they approach it, like or their teams and stuff, they go to Southeast Asian games, so they go to SEA games, and they beat the same teams, but then they get stomped by the same team, so they're somewhere in the middle of the pack. And so that's why I kind of first initially wanted to go there was because they're like, we need to figure out a way to try to do something a little bit differently because we've been having the same results against the same countries.
Mm.
And so we want to grow the game. We want it to become more popular, and it's beginning to. And it's definitely like it's only been popular, I would guess, for maybe 10 years or even growing for the last 10 years. So even the way the game is played, it's played like the 90s. It's like two bigs, shoot mid range, very slow. Like, and the bigs are like not bigs. They're just bigs, right?
Yeah.
So it's a different play style where I don't know. I don't know. I personally think the most fun way to play is fast and free,
Mm.
Just
right?
I just I've been thinking about like the youth level just because as soon as I hear you talking and you're explaining the resources and like a KPI for me is not easily measured, but well, I guess this could be like an intention behind a lot of the practice design would be increased number of touches.
Mm,
Because if it's difficult and you're on that one hoop with like 16 kids, we have to figure out ways and activities that get them to touch the basketball. Because if they're not touching the basketball, it's going to be very. Just watch any youth game here in North America, and I'm sure it's the same in Australia. What do? They hover around the basketball. Why? Because they want to build a relationship with the basketball. It's the center of the sport. And if you're not touching that basketball, who would want to keep playing, especially
yeah,
at that youth level? So figuring out activities and strategies to get touches throughout practice as much as possible, I think would be huge for retention.
yeah, love that.
Yeah, that's
Increase
great. Yeah.
increase touches, increase decisions, right? Just more opportunities to interact with the game and the experience of that whole thing. I love that. I love everything you guys say. You guys are like my two favorite guys to learn from.
I think, I mean, listening to that, it's like I just jotted some notes down here. It's like, you probably can't see it. My screen's not too good, I suppose. Can you see that or not? So that
Retention.
says
Yep, yep.
repetition up the top. Then I said, what are the things we have to do? Well, so it says here, retention requires I had one, enjoyment, two, inspiration, three, difference. There'll be something different about what you'll be doing. I wrote down the fast and free. That seemed to capture something there as well. So if that's like one of the big questions that is being asked of you, John, how do you increase retention? Then this captures what's going to be different about your approach compared to the way it has been. So there's some examples, and you might have other ones or whatever. And then I think that first KPI that you added, Adam, increase the number of touches. That's absolutely brilliant because that's right on. Okay. So, and that's why you're doing CLA. That's why you're doing small-sided games. So you can increase the number of touches. So they can have more enjoyment. They can be inspired more. They'll actually experience the difference. They can then play, faster and freer. And I had like KPIs 1, 2, 3. I've got nothing for 2 and 3 yet. But that seems to be a way to frame um, the problem and the approach that could build a solution pathway.
I agree. No, it's again those four. It's enjoyment, inspiration, difference. Like the difference of what we're doing fast and free. It's like again that sums up everything that like if you could just apply that across the whole program. If you could just increase that without having to do it, then you get a magic button. It's like when everyone
Mm.
want to join that program, when everyone want to play, like, and
Yeah.
that's I think, and it goes like obviously like with transformational positive coaching, it goes hand in hand, right? It's like especially when I was leaving Vietnam, I didn't expect like kind of the reception of like people like it's not the same without you leading our session or whatever. Like some of the players would message me and um I guess once they kind of saw a different approach, they really, really bought into it. Um, and they really enjoyed that experience. And yeah, if we can get at least a coach, even just trying something different to again increase at the end of the day, increase enjoyment, right? That'll lead number one, that would lead to a way, way better retention. Because yeah, you look at some of those kids that come in for the hour and a half, and like I've seen like one hoop would have 30 kids one time, and it's like how are you having fun? Like how it's like this, and the way that you know the way that practices are run or whatever, it's a lot of standing, a lot of lines, right?
I think that links back to some of the very first things you said, John, about when you describe part of the challenge. Um, you mentioned the low retention, but you also said you use class. So did the players experience this like another school class? So that's part of the difference, I think, here. It will not be like another school class. Rather, it's like this. So I think that's showing,
Reframing that,
reframing that. Yeah, that's exactly, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's language, simple, right? But it's the language of it. And when I first heard them say it, they're like, "Oh yeah, like I can't make it to class today, or I'll be late to class today," and they call me teacher, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need a title. Like you can call me John. I really don't I don't care, but I don't like the formality. Um, like I never dress up. I don't ever dress up for anything. I'm in a hoodie. I'm in I'm in whatever, right? Like I'm not. So I want them to approach it not the exact same way, but again, less formal. Like don't worry about. Let's just go play. Let's go have fun. Like let's find joy in this environment. Um, Definitely that's the number one the number one intention, right, for all of this is how can we
Mm.
make it more fun. um Trying to think what else here. I'm trying to think of another like KPIs. Like I'm going back to KPIs and going back even for because obviously with 400 kids, um and potentially not a lot of court time, increased number of touches. So now I'm trying to think of activities, I guess, like 3-on-3-on-3s or 4-on-4-on-4s, or I guess depending on numbers and what we can do with that. Um, it's definitely got me thinking. How would you approach? I guess like trying to figure out like how would you besides just like obviously getting them to play more in practice, like what are your thoughts on, and I don't know, this is an organizational thing, but I think I might have the opportunity to hopefully try to schedule games, or at least schedule more, or at least try to voice my opinion that we need more opportunities to play.
Mm.
Um, Again, I have no experience scheduling. I have no experience reaching out and trying to figure out how to run tournaments or play days or anything like that. Um, are there any KPIs that you would have in terms of running maybe a tournament, and you would say that this is something that really helped, build excitement in this tournament or in this day of games? Like, because what I've seen when they run these kind of like play days or jamborees, it's very, there's like speeches and things that like, there's a lot of stuff that for the kids is like, they don't care about that. They don't care about someone standing at the front where we all line up and they have this big banner out, and like we're wasting time here. Like let's get them playing. Um, I don't know. I'm just thinking about like KPIs in terms of running a tournament or a jamboree or something like that. How can I ensure that they're getting the most out of that from someone that has no experience in scheduling and um I don't know. I don't know. Like what helped, I guess, for you guys. I don't know if you guys are like if you guys have a lot of experience doing that, but like what lessons have you learned if you've organized your own things? Like what are some mistakes that you might have made early on that um when trying to build out scheduling or tournaments and stuff like that?
Have you done something like that, Adam? Maybe was it with college prep or London Lions, or was that sort of similar to what John's asking there, do you think?
No, not really. Like for I can
It's
honestly what I can speak on is like running AU tournaments and like summer leagues. And the big thing there is just not having any lag time in between and just really transitioning from game to game as fast as possible and like having those teams ready and
mm,
you don't want people lingering and stuff like that. That's the only thing I really know as far as
yeah.
about scheduling and all that stuff. So just being very cognizant of we I don't know.
How much warm up time would you give them roughly? Then would you say?
Oh, minimal. Minimal. We're talking like 5 minutes max because they can especially the age group you're talking about. I
Right.
mean,
They can just go out. They can go
they can
play.
just go out and hoop.
Yeah. Would you like my dream of running a youth development league is like everyone has to full court press the whole game. And it's like I want, especially because like I don't know, a lot of teams will fall into like zone at super young ages. And so like I want to ban zone, which is that's possible, but it's like I want kids to develop and like this is I don't know if I'd be able to do this, but it's something that I've thought about is like what happens if you just make every team you gotta get up. Every team has to get up. And it's I don't know, like can we I don't know, is that even I just like the idea of everyone having to learn how to guard.
Well, that's certainly foreseeable. Actually, I'll point you to a guy I had on the podcast recently, Sean Kading. He has, God, what was it? I think it was fourth and fifth graders. So we're talking what, 9, 10, and 11-year olds. And it's a 4-on-3, 3-on-2 league. And he scaled it based off like certain levels and what, like they actually, it's not a press. So it's purely transition. You're obviously just going from shot to shot, and then you just run out of bounds and go to back to the other end, get back in line, and you do it for 4 quarters. So one group you're going for on one session, you're going 4-on-3. That's your group, and then you're having the two defenders, and then obviously you switch, you alternate each. That way you have two goes at each. But I think what's encouraging is just the number of touches. They're getting up and down, and they have an advantage, so
Mm,
they don't have to create that advantage. And what he also did further down the line was actually you don't press. You actually can't even guard outside of the three. You have to be inside the three, and he took away reaching on the ball because that's a
uh,
big struggle, obviously, with that age group as well. Is they're not exactly super comfortable with handling, especially when it comes to pivoting. That defender has such a huge advantage at that age
mm.
level where they can just rip the ball away from them.
I haven't listened to this episode yet. So how did he get them to not reach? Or
Yeah, they have one
how did he
official.
approach that?
They have one official, and they just established it. They showed them beforehand, like, "Hey, this is what we can and cannot do on the basketball," and then they refereed it out from there.
I like that. I like that. I think that
Yeah,
that
that's
could
good. So
I think that that
it's
could
like you've got a
do a lot.
transition tournament.
Yep, that's
Yep.
what it was. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah, and the
Now I got
constraints in there really assist with, the more touches and fast and playing fast up and down the floor. Yeah.
Mhm.
I like
Just
that.
just
That's
recently
got
here,
me
we've
thinking.
just finished what's called the Victorian Primary School Championship. So these are young kids in, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. Um, and like there's hundreds and hundreds of primary schools that enter the competition, and there's filtering as teams win, and we finally get to the top 20 teams that came to the finals. And that happened a couple of weekends ago. But I think what was good there was there were only two halves, and they were 7-minute halves. That was it. And it was like a 2-minute warm up. So quick warm up, 7 minutes, 7 minutes. Then they had a rest for about 30 minutes, then the next game. So you had all of these players in the stadium being really active, knowing that their next game is coming very soon as well. So, the next activity is always there for them. So, a pretty simple approach, but it was like that tournament concept that you're talking about, John. Um, huge amount of fun. Um, there were no other constraints on the game in terms of, whether it's 4-on-3 or transition like that. But it still would have been, must be man to man because that's just the rules here in our state. Um, but you could try it with the version that Adam described there. You could try it with a version of full court press and see what happens. Maybe for one quarter it's full court press.
Yeah.
The other one quarter's 4-on-3 transition into 3-on-2. Another court
Love
is
that.
always inside the 3-point line or something like that. So different situations across the 4 quarters in that rapid environment where things are continually happening for the players.
That's awesome. That's got me thinking. I like that. It's kind of like it makes me think of like a 3x3 event. I don't know about Australia and America, but like 3x3 is not that big in Canada. Like I had no experience with 3x3 until I went to Vietnam and I saw it. 3x3 might sometimes be bigger than 5-on-5 in Asia just because of space, right? And that just makes me think of 3x3 or even playing rugby sevens, right? And just how quick, you said 2 7-minute halves, you're playing 30 minutes later, like it's super quick. How big were the rosters for that in the 7-minute halves? Like, are they running full 10, 12 kids, or is it
No,
kind of
most of the
shrunk
teams
down?
have either 7 or 8
Yeah.
players.
Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
I like that, and I definitely need to listen to this 4-on-3, 3-on-2 podcast after with Adam. So,
Mm.
but I like that. I like the full event because it's essentially just, yeah, like you guys said, you're playing transition the whole time. And so I like because at the end of the day, they're playing and they're not going to be like, oh, what do you mean? Why aren't we playing 5-on-5? I feel like I'd be able to create buy-in from that. Um, just based on, hey, you're going to have fun. You're going to be playing fast. You're going to get a bunch of touches. You're going to be coming in and out super quick. So you got to stay locked in and ready to go.
Yeah.
Right. Stay present here. And,
Good.
and I like that. And I think I can create buy-in with that. So that's definitely got me thinking pretty good right now.
Yeah, that's good, John.
Any more thoughts that you guys have though? This has been awesome. I have like a ton of stuff I need to write down and sort out now in my brain. It's all over the place right now, but nothing else.
Nah, man,
No,
man.
no
I mean,
thoughts.
like keep us in the loop. Like as far as like once you find out more details, it'll be super
Yeah,
Mm.
I'm
good once we
literally
know
waiting.
that, you know.
I'm waiting for the boss to get back to me and try to sort this out because I'm heading there in like 2 weeks. So, and you need a visa to get in there. So I'm hoping that he gets back to me soon and so we can get my visa sorted. Um, but no, this again, after talking with Neil last time as well, it fires me up to get back out there and actually um trying to make a difference, right? And trying to help grow the game as best I can. So I appreciate both of you guys. Um, just freestyling and just sharing thoughts that are coming in. I got a couple pages of notes, so that's I'm gonna spend this week sorting out. I work at the Children's Hospital graveyard shift this week. I do like internal call center operator. So like when nurses need a room clean, they call me and then I just dispatch. It's like I'm playing a video game. Like I dispatch the housekeepers out and they go take care of business. So it gives me a lot of time to work on basketball stuff because graveyard not a lot's going on.
Yeah,
Um, so I'm gonna be spending this whole week going through all this and really trying to think about how best to approach it. So thank you guys. Thank you guys for all the knowledge. And like I said, you guys are some of my favorite guys to learn from. So thank you both for your time. This was awesome.
Thank you, John. Come up
absolutely.
with stuff
Thanks.
I wouldn't have
Yeah,
thought of without you, so it's cool.
Awesome.
that's right. It
Awesome.
just comes up in conversation, doesn't it?
So fun. So fun to
Mm.
learn from you guys.